The altimeter spins wildly, 28,000 feet. The Messerschmitt Bf-109 shudders as tracer rounds tear through its left wing. Hauptmann Friedrich Dorn's hands shake on the control stick, not from cold, but from the impossible truth burning in his mind. The American fighter closing in behind him shouldn't exist. It's faster, more agile, deadlier. And in this frozen moment above the French countryside, Friedrich realizes something that will haunt the Luftwaffe for the rest of the war. They're not the hunters anymore. They're the prey. 6 months earlier, Hauptmann Friedrich Dorn was untouchable. At 27 years old, he wore the Knight's Cross at his throat, a symbol of 32 confirmed kills over the skies of Europe. His squadron, Jagdgeschwader 27, operated from a captured French airfield near Reims, and every morning Friedrich walked to his Messerschmitt Bf-109 G6 with the confidence of a man who owned the sky. The Americans had been bombing Germany for months, but their P-47 Thunderbolts and P-38 Lightnings were predictable. Heavy, brutal machines that excelled at ground attack but struggled in dogfights above 20,000 feet. Friedrich and his fellow pilots had developed tactics: strike fast, climb high, disappear into the clouds. The Bf-109 was a precision instrument, and in capable hands, it carved through Allied formations like a scalpel. "They send farm boys in flying tanks," Friedrich told his wingman, Lieutenant Klaus Brenner, as they reviewed gun camera footage one evening. On the screen, a P-47 exploded in a fireball after Friedrich's 20mm cannon rounds found its engine. "They're brave, but bravery doesn't win wars. Skill does." Klaus nodded, though something flickered in his eyes, a hesitation Friedrich didn't notice. Klaus was younger, 22, with only 9 kills to his name. He'd been hearing rumors from pilots returning from the Eastern Front, whispers about new Soviet fighters that moved like wasps. But here, in France, the sky still belonged to the Luftwaffe. March arrived with unusually clear weather. Intelligence reports mentioned a new American escort fighter entering service, something designated P-51 Mustang. But the briefings were vague. Another variant, their Staffelkapitän dismissed it during the morning assembly. Probably slower than the P-47, focus on the bombers. On March 15, 1944, Friedrich led his Schwarm, a flight of 4 aircraft, toward a formation of B-17 flying fortresses approaching from the west. The bombers flew in their characteristic combat box, bristling with defensive guns, but Friedrich had done this dozens of times. The key was to attack from 12 o'clock high, diving through the formation before the gunners could track you. At 28,000 feet, he rolled inverted and pushed forward on the stick. The Bf-109 responded beautifully, screaming toward the lead bomber at 400 miles per hour. His gun sights settled on the B-17's cockpit. Friedrich's finger tightened on the trigger. Then Klaus's voice exploded over the radio. "Achtung! Fighters at 6 o'clock!" Friedrich pulled hard right, his vision tunneling as G-forces crushed him into his seat. His training took over: reverse, climb, assess. He craned his neck to look behind, and his blood turned to ice. 6 silver shapes were climbing toward them, impossibly fast. They weren't P-47s, they weren't P-38s. These aircraft had sleek bubble canopies and laminar flow wings that cut through the air like knives bolts. And they were accelerating upward, matching the Bf-109's climb rate, then exceeding it. Friedrich watched one P-51 Mustang pull vertical, hang in the air for a heartbeat, then roll onto Klaus's tail with predatory precision. The American pilot fired a 2-second burst. Klaus's Messerschmitt disintegrated, wing tumbling away in a spiral of flame and metal fragments. The last thing Friedrich saw before his own aircraft shuddered under enemy fire was the Mustang pilot's face through the canopy. Calm, focused, professional. A hunter who recognized another predator's weakness. The age of the Luftwaffe's dominance was over. Friedrich's Bf-109 screamed in protest as he hauled it into a split S, diving away from the P-51 that had claimed Klaus. His altimeter unwound rapidly, 26,000 feet, 22,000, 18,000. The dive should have given him separation. The Messerschmitt could reach 435 miles per hour in a dive, and most Allied fighters struggled to follow without compressibility issues that locked their controls. But when Friedrich leveled out at 12,000 feet and looked back, the silver Mustang was still there, still closing. Unmöglich, Friedrich breathed. Impossible. He'd trained for this his entire career. The Bf-109 was lighter, more maneuverable in horizontal turns. He banked hard left, pulling 6 Gs, feeling his vision narrow to a pinpoint as blood drained from his head. The American should overshoot. Too much speed, too much energy. Friedrich would reverse, get guns on target, one quick burst. The P-51 matched his turn, tightened inside it. Friedrich's mind struggled to process what his eyes were showing him. The Mustang wasn't just keeping up, it was outmaneuvering him. The American pilot rolled inverted above Friedrich's canopy, hung there for a moment like a shark circling prey, then snap-rolled behind him again. A 3-second burst from 6.50 caliber machine guns stitched holes across Friedrich's left wing, severing hydraulic lines. His aileron controls went mushy. Panic, real primal panic, flooded his system for the first time in 3 years of combat. Friedrich had been shot at hundreds of times, but always with the understanding that his skill and his aircraft gave him options. Now, fighting this American, he had none. The P-51 was faster in level flight, faster in a climb, just as agile in turns. It could dive forever without control issues, and it apparently had fuel to spare, staying with him through violent maneuvers that should have drained its tanks. 2 more Bf-109s from his swarm appeared, diving to help. Oberfeldwebel Hermann Wolf and Unteroffizier Dieter Scholl had seen Klaus die and were converging on Friedrich's position. Relief surged through Friedrich's chest. 2 against 1 they could. 3 more P-51s materialized from above, dropping on Hermann and Dieter like hawks on mice. The radio filled with shouts, warnings, prayers. Hermann's engine exploded in black smoke. Dieter's aircraft entered an uncontrolled spin, smoke trailing from the cockpit. Pilot hit. Friedrich was alone again. The original Mustang pilot hadn't been distracted by the new targets. He stayed glued to Friedrich's tail, patient, methodical, waiting for the killing shot. Friedrich tried everything. He chopped throttle, deployed flaps, attempted a hammerhead stall, desperate maneuvers that would have shaken any previous Allied fighter. The P-51 adjusted to each move instantly, maintaining perfect firing position. The American pilot wasn't showing off. He was demonstrating complete superiority. "What are you flying?" Friedrich shouted at the empty cockpit as if the American could hear him. His voice cracked with something between rage and despair. Another burst tore through his right stabilizer. The Bf-109 shuddered violently, nose pitching down. Friedrich fought the controls, barely keeping the aircraft flyable. His engine temperature spiked into the red zone. Coolant hit, maybe glycol fire coming. He was 80 kilometers from his airfield. He'd never make it. The P-51 pulled alongside him, close enough that Friedrich could see the pilot's flight suit, his oxygen mask, the squadron markings painted on the fighter's nose. The American looked at him, really looked at him, then waggled his wings. a gesture pilots understood universally. You're beaten. Go home. Then the Mustang accelerated away, climbing effortlessly to rejoin the bomber formation Friedrich had been hunting. The message was clear. We don't even need to finish you. You're irrelevant. Friedrich limped back to base in his dying aircraft, knowing he was carrying news that would shatter his squadron's morale. The Americans had built something the Luftwaffe couldn't counter. The hunters had become the hunted. Friedrich touched down with his hydraulics failing, the Bf-109 slewing sideways on the runway before ground crew surrounded it. He climbed out on shaking legs, watched mechanics survey the damage. 63 bullet holes, wing spar cracked, stabilizer half destroyed. By every law of aerial combat, he should be dead. The debrief happened in the squadron's command tent 30 minutes later. Staffelkapitän Erich Hauptmann stood before a map of France, his Knight's Cross with oak leaves catching lamplight. 12 pilots sat in folding chairs, faces pale. 4 empty seats represented Klaus, Hermann, Dieter, and Lieutenant Paul Richter, 4 dead in a single mission. Tell me about this new fighter, Hauptmann said quietly. Friedrich stood, his flight suit still soaked with sweat despite the March cold. It's called the P-51 Mustang. British design, American engine, Merlin Fives 12, probably 1,400 horsepower. He paused, gathering words for the impossible. Staffelkapitän, it outperforms our aircraft in every measurable category. Silence filled the tent. Someone coughed nervously. Impossible, said Oberleutnant Werner Graf, a veteran with 43 kills. The Americans can't build fighters. They make trucks with wings. I watched it climb with us, Friedrich said, his voice flat. I watched it turn inside a Bf-109 in a 6G break. It chased me through a 15,000-foot dive and gained distance. And when it could have killed me, the pilot chose mercy because we're no longer a threat worth the ammunition. Werner stood up, fists clenched. You're saying we can't win? I'm saying the air war is over. Friedrich met his gaze. We've been fighting with one arm tied behind our backs, fuel rationed, spare parts scarce, experienced pilots dying faster than we can replace them. And now the Americans have a fighter that's better than ours, even if we had unlimited resources. The P-51 has range to escort bombers to Berlin and back. It's faster than our jets. It's enough. Hartmann's voice cracked like a whip. You're dismissed, Hauptmann. Get medical attention. That's an order. Friedrich walked out into the twilight, past rows of Messerschmitts being patched, refueled, rearmed for tomorrow's missions. He saw young pilots, boys really, 17, 18 years old, laughing nervously as they prepared for their first combat sorties. None of them knew what was coming. None of them understood that the skies over Europe now belonged to silver American fighters, flown by men who'd trained in safety, who had fuel to spare, who flew aircraft engineered by a nation whose factories hadn't been bombed daily for 2 years. Klaus's mechanics were packing up his personal effects, letters from home, a photograph of his mother, a worn copy of Goethe poems. Friedrich took the book, held it for a moment, then set it back down. Klaus had believed in German technical superiority right up until the moment a P-51's gun ended his life. That night, Friedrich wrote a letter he'd never send, addressed to no one. We told ourselves we were the best pilots in the world, flying the best aircraft ever built. We believed it because our leaders needed us to believe it, because our pride demanded it, because admitting the truth meant accepting defeat. But I saw the truth today at 28,000 feet over France. The Americans didn't just match us, they surpassed us. And they did it with better technology, better resources, better strategy. History will remember the Luftwaffe aces, our kill counts, our Knight's Crosses. But history should also remember this. We lost the day someone built a fighter we couldn't beat and flew it with men just as brave, just as skilled, and far better equipped than we ever were. Friedrich Dorn flew 16 more missions before the war ended. He never claimed another kill. He survived, returned to Germany, and never spoke of the day he realized the war was lost, the day he met the P-51 Mustang.